Okay, so you get your PhD, and you actually join the Hayden Planetarium, which you eventually become the director of a few years later.
I did a
and this
postdoc.
is kind of where you started, and now you came back as the head of the same planetarium.
Yes. Yeah, as a kid, I was there. And so that imbues within me a certain sense of obligation. No, that sounds burdensome. Duty, a sense of duty that whatever I create there with our mixture of scientists and educators, that they will have the power of influence of a next generation of students the way the scientists and educators did on me. That's the least I could do for a city in which I grew up.
Well, in 2001, former President George W. Bush appointed you to serve on the Commission on the Future of the United States Aerospace Industry. So did you actually meet Bush and everything else during that time?
So no, it depends what you mean by meet. We were in the same room together, but I didn't officially shake his hands and get a photo with him. But it was a White House commission, and there were 12 of us to study. The aerospace industry had been on hard times. There was a lot of consolidation in the industry. Innovation wasn't. You need diversity of corporate landscape to have some hope of innovation. Otherwise, the big corporations settle on what has always worked. And so there was a congressional concern, bipartisan congressional concern, that this would affect our commerce, our security, and our transportation. Because the aerospace industry makes our airplanes, they make our jets, and they make the cargo planes. So we went around the world studying this problem and then reported back to the White House. Yeah.
Right. And a few years later, in 2004, you served on the President's Commission on Implementation of United States Space Exploration Policy, a.k.a. Moon, Mars, and Beyond.
Moon, Mars. Yeah, we had to tighten up that title. Right. It's yeah. So I was twice appointed by President Bush. That's correct.
Okay. And in Moon, Mars, and Beyond, what did you conclude in this whole program?
Yes.
If you were to sum it up in a way.
Yeah. So I can easily sum it up. The question is, why continue this? Why spend money up there if we have problems down here on Earth? This is a perennial concern, and it's a genuine concern when people express it. I don't ever want to make light of it, because your problems that you confront on Earth are very real to you, and whatever benefits going to space might bring are distant and abstract. So we mapped a route that within budget would enable NASA to continue its path of exploration, maintain the shuttle for some number of years, but then as you phase out the shuttle, you phase in a rocket that would then get you to Mars. But doing this on a time frame that is within the budget that NASA had continued to be receiving at that time. And that way we wouldn't be stalled going into space. And a backdrop of that was the rest of the world increasing their interest in space, including China launching their first astronaut. Of course, they'd be called a taikonaut. And China says, I put this in one of my books, speculation, but I'm all in on it, which is we don't invite China to participate in the International Space Station.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yes, they were disinvited.
Huh.
We invited Russia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Russia, because they're brilliant people in Russia who were working on space. We don't want them to go to our enemies, whoever they were identified geopolitically at the time. Bring them with us, then they are our allies. And that's why the space station is primarily the United States and Russia and European other nations as well. But the big players were the United States and Russia because we had the spacecraft that'll get astronauts to the space station. Okay. It was a space shuttle and the Soyuz. Okay. So there's no China. What were the reasons? Oh, human rights violations. It was a political statement of our disapproval of their ways.
Russia didn't have human rights.
I know. I'm just saying. You can't invoke rational thought on a geopolitical landscape.
Right.
You can only invoke geopolitics. Okay, so I think I have no evidence for this. No evidence. I think deep down, someone somewhere said, if we disinvite China, we know they're going to do this on their own. They're going to make their own space station. They're going to put their own people in orbit. They have the resources. Their economy was on a tear. They're going to do it. And that'll spook us into redoubling our space efforts because now we have a new adversary to replace the Soviet Union, which is the role they played when we went to the moon. So fast forward a few 15 years, and what do we have now? China says they want to put astronauts on the moon. Oh, we have the Artemis program. Returning to the moon.
Right.
And you part the curtains. Well, why? Oh, it's the right thing to do. Oh, yeah, it's exploration. We're going to do that. We could have stayed on the moon in 1972. Did we? No. We could have gone back by 1980. No. 1990. No. 2000. No. Yeah. 2010. No.
Right.
Oh, right now. We're going back now. So I think that whatever that thinking was back then is working because people feel threatened by a frenemy around the world.